The Federal Court of Appeal has overturned a lower court decision, meaning Ottawa's ban on single-use plastics will stay in place following a unanimous decision today. The three-judge panel ruled that the federal government's decision to list plastic manufactured items as toxic was reasonable. The government defined toxic as substances which could harm the environment or biological diversity. In the 2023 decision, a court ruled that the Liberal government had overstepped in its designation. Ottawa used it to regulate a ban on manufacturing and importing 6 types of single-use plastics, including cutlery, straws, and grocery bags. Parties will now have 60 days to ask the Supreme Court of Canada to review the decision. I want to bring in MP Steven Guilbeault now, who was Canada's Minister of Environment and Climate Change at the time when the plastics ban was implemented. Mr. Guilbeault, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
You know what? Let's get into this. Your reaction today, when the lower court initially overruled the government. I know that your government and when you were a part of it too, and part of cabinet, was quick to appeal it. You get this decision today, so give me your reaction to again the Court of Appeal overturning it.
Well, I mean, it is definitely a victory for the federal government's approach to fighting plastic pollution, but I think more so it's a victory for Canadians, for the health of Canadians and the health of our environment. We now know that we find plastic substances in the water we drink, in the food we eat, and the more we give ourselves the tools to fight plastic pollution, and obviously we're not talking about banning all plastics here, but making sure that we keep plastics into the economy and out of our bodies and out of the environment is the goal. So to ensure that we can have better plastics that are being used, plastics that are easily recyclable by companies, as opposed to ended up in our dumpsters or the environment or even our bodies.
Yeah, you talk about how impactful it has been and some of that pollution over the course of many, many years of plastics. I'm curious because, initially some businesses were saying, that the ban was going to be costly, but at the same time, we've seen pretty much all of them pivot to, to whether it's cardboard, whether it's some consumers aren't a huge fan of that. But for the most part, and have you seen the same that, most businesses and most people have gotten on board and understand this change now?
You're absolutely right. We initially heard from companies and those that were suing the government that this would be the end of the world as we knew it. That has not happened, as you rightly point out. Companies have adapted, people have adapted, and we now seeing better, more sustainable practices in many of these sectors. There's still some more work to be done, and this ruling by the Court of Appeal will ensure that the federal government can continue moving forward on this strategy to better protect the health of Canadians and to better protect our environment.
I'm curious where more of that work needs to be done, in your opinion, at least for right now.
Well, one thing that should happen is that we mandate that more recycled plastic be used in the fabrication of plastic as opposed to using virgin fibers. And what will happen if we do that, and we're seeing this happen in other parts of the world, like Europe, for example, is that all of a sudden you give more of an economic value to plastic. So the companies will want to make sure that we have good recycling programs in place, that plastic doesn't end up wasted, doesn't end up in our environment, because they'll need this to be able to fabricate a number of the things that we use. I mean, there's plastics in our phones, in our vehicles, in the medical sector. So we need those plastics for those applications. We don't need plastic to end up in our environment or even in our bodies.
I'm curious, too, for you right now, that I'm assuming that the plastic companies and those on the other side of this are going to appeal to the Supreme Court. Do you believe that the ban and this will stand up if it does get that far?
I'm not sure that I would necessarily agree with you that companies will appeal. I think the ruling is unanimous by 3 federal appeal court judges. It's very clear. They say that there's no impeachment on the Constitution by the federal government. So I suspect that companies will think twice about appealing to the Supreme Court. It is a very solid ruling in favor of the federal government and the approach that we had developed under Prime Minister Trudeau.
Okay, former Minister of Environment and Climate Change and MP Steven Guilbeault, appreciate your time today, sir. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much.